That was really what spurred me on to start the 90 Days of DevOps.
Welcome to the Cloud-Native Talk episode 11, and we can see we are with Michael Cade here. And who is the Michael Cade? Most of the people don't know who is the person behind the 90 Days of DevOps and who started this initiative. So yeah, we have the Michael Cade, who is the person who started this initiative, and he has done amazing things in the community. Also, he developed a evangelist and global technologist at the Veeam, which is one of the biggest tech companies in the industry, right? I would like to ask Michael. So we know each other from long time now. So we come together due to DevOps and Cloud Native only on the Twitter. So till now, how was your experience like about DevOps, this technology? So how did you get into the DevOps? So what you would like to answer on this?
Yeah, so firstly, thanks for having me, Rohit. Awesome to be here. I think the first thing I should say as well is around. I started very much in that IT ops, or at least what we'd call IT ops these days. Infrastructure, systems administrator, storage, virtualization was like where I first got into, I would say, tech. I think everyone. I very much started on the help desk and then worked my way into that role. And then probably about 5-6 years ago. So I've been at Veeam for 8 years. Veeam. So just a bit about Veeam. Veeam focuses on protection of data. So started off with around virtualization, backup, then physical, then cloud native with Cade, and my last 2 years has been focused around Kubernetes data management with Cade, and raising awareness of what we're doing there. But even before that, so I would say probably about 4 or 5 years ago, me and my colleague Anthony Spiteri, also on Twitter, also shouting about all things tech as well. We came across Terraform, and we started to use Terraform in our day-to-day demo building, our environment building, and everything that we were doing around like spinning up environments for demonstrations, for customer meetings, etc., for breakout sessions. So that was where we first started to go into that. And then along with that, I got a little bit more interested around application configuration management, around things like Chef and Ansible. So I then created a Chef cookbook around Veeam around Veeam backup replication. I'm pretty sure today no one ever used it, but it was a great learning curve for me to get involved with something like that. So
Yeah.
fast forward 2-3 years on top of that, so about 2021, and so it was 2022 when I started 90 Days of DevOps. So I went for a year where I was working with Kasten and Kubernetes, Cloud Native, and that was obviously a lot of SRE, DevOps, platform engineering, whatever you want to call it. I know we'll get onto that in a bit as well. But I felt like I had a good understanding of some things like Linux and networking and a bit of infrastructure as code from a Terraform perspective, maybe a bit of Ansible as well. But then I started to have lots of holes, things like CI/CD, things like observability. I had just gaps in my foundational knowledge of that, which is actually where 90 Days of DevOps kind of first came in. It was about me learning in public. It was never meant to be I never thought it was going to be a learning resource for everyone else. So yeah, there's that. So that's kind of my background.
Oh, got it. So previously you were in which profession? You told that?
So I've been in IT since I left college. So I was on the help desk. Then I started moving through. I was at a small reseller, very local to me. Then I went to a larger reseller. I went to a company called Logicalis, a global reseller. And then I went to distribution. So if anyone knows what the channel looks like within the IT selling world, you have your resellers that are reselling to your end users. You have your distribution that traditionally would ship boxes of storage and disks, and now it's just a piece of paper with a license on. And then from there, I moved into Veeam as a systems engineer, so a pre-sales engineer, where I would help but I would make sure that the salespeople weren't lying to the customers. I was keeping them honest, and then later on moved into what we called like an evangelist team, which if you think about DevRel is very much focused on the developer. I was more of on the infrastructure side. I was evangelizing Veeam technologies to the infrastructure, to the sysadmin, to the infrastructure teams across the world.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so I had previous talk with, I guess, Rishabh. So Rishabh had kind of a similar journey. He was in the help desk, and then now he's now developer evangelist, as we know. So both of you are nice guys. He also contributed, I guess, Python series in DevOps, 90 Days of DevOps, right? Yeah, nice. So I heard about your things, and it was really nice journey and an inspiring one for most of the folks. So if you think like you were stuck, so like you need only experienced person in the DevOps, and you need only kind of experience in the to get into DevOps, and you should have crossed some of the years after going to the colleges. So as you can see, a lot of people in the industry has gone through various stages, and now they are into the DevOps and technical evangelist and everything. It is not like you can't do as a fresher. You can do. It is possible nowadays. It is possible. Previously, it was names of this technologies and roles was different, so people were working in the different domains. Now DevOps is like directly given as a role. Previously, it was not like that. So it is evolving, and that's why people are naming accordingly. So, without wasting time, I would like to ask you. So, you started this 90 days of DevOps as just a path of learning. So, did you heard from somewhere like learning publics help us to and help us in some way, or you found it really effective method or something, and how it is grown to your career? So, you think back to 2 or 3 years back, how was you active, how was your profile, and now if you see on the online social presence and also to the world presence in the technical, so
Yeah. So even before like I got into the cloud native and the DevOps like community, I was still writing content. I was still creating blogs. I have a blog site called vzilla.co.uk that nobody in this world goes to because it's all focused around virtualization. It's focused on Veeam technologies. But I was always part of that virtualization community, and I was wanting to always give back because I'd taken so much from that community, learned so much from that community, that I wanted to always create good content that was going to help someone, at least someone. And that's a key part to it, is that anyone should create content. If it helps one person, it's worth doing. And I've constantly said that. So I had the mindset, I would say that I'm not a bad writer in terms of what I want to get across and how concise I can be. I know some people, I've got some friends that they're also good writers, but they'll write 7,000 words to say one thing, whereas I want to squeeze everything into 1,000 words maximum because that's consumable. That's what I want to read, so that's why I do it. Again, if it helps one person, then it's worth doing. So I took that, and that was really what spurred me on to start the 90 Days of DevOps. And again, it was basically a blog a day for 90 days, going into different areas of DevOps as a technology. But Ray, I'm going to go back a second as well, because like when I first started in IT, coming out of college, DevOps wasn't a thing.
right.
You had developers and you had operations, and these are the whole problems that we talk about, and how DevOps like fixes, or at least puts an arm around both camps. We had developers, we had operations, and we also had QA, and they were all very separate, siloed teams within the company, almost different like credit cards to do what they needed to do. And this was before cloud as well. And I don't want to show my age too much. it was only around like 2010, 2011 when DevOps started to be something that was spoken about with the likes of Netflix and that whole subscription model that we saw, the cloud-based workloads that started to come out with AWS. But Netflix always rings true in my mind because they're the ones that really took on and started being very open about what they're doing from a DevOps point of view. The same as like some of the newer financials as well, especially in the UK, like Monzo and Revolut. They're doing something a little bit different to the traditional banks. So that was where we started to hear about it. But how many of us work for a Netflix? Like none of us. None of us work for the size of Netflix or Google, right? But fast forward to like 2021, and I felt like, and I'm sure you did as well, Rohit, but I felt like there was this real urge to actually start adopting these technologies regardless of whatever size business you are. Because if I can automate something, if I can take that away from my daily or weekly task list, that frees me up to do something else. It frees me up to go somewhere else and do something else. Plus, it was exciting. It still is exciting, right? To automate something and make something easy. And then you start thinking about the scale. And I think the pandemic massively helped us. There's one way it did help us in that it blew out the walls of the data center. I think pre-pandemic, although yes, the public cloud offerings were there, AWS, Google, Microsoft, etc., they were all available. But I feel like the majority of companies were a bit like, I'm not going there. I'm all right with my data center. I'm going to keep everything in-house. Then the pandemic hit, and it was like, poof, everything needs to go outside. It needs to be closer to our people. We need to leverage technology. We need to leverage like elasticity and all of that good stuff that the cloud brings. And that just accelerated that viewpoint of, oh yeah, we can't really waste time on building a virtual machine and spend hours doing that. I just need to use something quick to spin it up. So I feel like we were there in that, and I was just lucky with 90 Days of DevOps. What I'm now looking back at, and I've done sessions on this, is it's a way of anyone could pick that up as a beginner, and now they've got a structured approach to learning the fundamentals of DevOps and some of the tooling, the principles, the processes around that. So there's 12 areas of that that we covered, and one being like the DevOps. What is the DevOps big picture? And I don't have, like, if I was brand new into this space, I don't have to go and look for all of these different areas. I can just go and look at this repository and work through each one, or even just pick and choose which one I want to like go through as well. So I think it gave structure, and I think that from speaking to people, getting feedback from the community, I feel like that was the biggest reason why it started to grow up so quick from a stars GitHub stars perspective. And it was definitely around that. And then the whole project's blown me away. Like, it's ridiculous how I think we're at 22,000 stars now. It's been translated into 8 different languages. And we're very close to 100 contributors for the whole project.
Wow. So it is really huge thing now. So, and it is really big, making the impact, because if you see anyone talking about DevOps in known way or unknown way, they are sharing their path in the 90 days of DevOps kind of hashtags or something. They don't know like who founded the 90 days of DevOps. They don't know like is there any code repository exist or something or not. But they just know like, this kind of a 90 days of a DevOps hashtag exists, and we can use that and we can share our journey. So in any way, it is helping the people. And if they share something day by day in some manner, of course they will get a reach. Of course they will keep the consistency because they have done something previous day. So depending on that, they will get it they will get better than past day. So also, when I found out about 9 days of DevOps, I saw like why people need the roadmap. This is entire thing. Like if they do this for the 90 days completely, they can short get knowledge of a DevOps easily. because it is not like DevOps is hard or something. That is not a structured method, and there is really high paid courses available everywhere, and they are, it's like institutes are charging, I guess, only uh, for just teaching the service mesh. I saw some days ago they are charging 40,000 rupees INR. So if you talk in the dollars, I guess it is $5,000 somewhere.
Yeah.
So not $5,000. It is around 800 or $1,000 somewhere. But so we can think it is like just for learning one of the like 5 days or 7 days of technology or something, and they are not also providing in a deep dive or something. It is just some kind of a way, and they are charging this much. So we are providing it for free. So
Yeah.
why you should go there? Yeah.
And that was a massive thing as well, Rohit. Like, the free part, the open source learning, as I've been told that's what it is now. And if you go through each of the day, there's resources at the bottom that link to YouTube channels and YouTube videos. Like, none of it is there. There might be a few books in there that I've said you should go and read that. The Phoenix Project rings a bell like massively from a book that anyone should go and get hold of. But everything else is like, everything is free from a resources point of view. Like, I'm not making any money off this, and nor should we, right? Even though maybe we don't get into it here, but like, if you look at who's using it, who's spreading this around the big vendors, Red Hat, Microsoft, some of those big vendors are sharing it internally as part of their onboarding, which is great, and I want them to, but maybe they need to think about how they support open source learning so that we can create more content, so that we can do more for the community as well. Like, I'm okay, I'm fine, but I've got some contributors that have helped this year, and I'll get on to what we're doing this year or what we're about to finish this year. They're in a different boat, right? They've got requirements. They don't have a good company behind them in some cases, and if they could just get a GitHub sponsor on top of that, that would help. That would help them. But going back to that freeness, the other thing that I wanted to do all the way through at least 2022, the addition there, and I know that this is spread into the version that we're just about to complete, is everyone should be able to do the scenario. So if I break it down, if you haven't seen 90 Days of DevOps, we generally start with a big picture of what the technology.
You can also share your screen and show them that repository also for the audience.
Yeah, so just to like level set, if you haven't seen it, so when you come to 90 Days of DevOps, or if you go to 90daysofdevops.com, you're going to probably stumble across this first README page. And if we go into 2022, you see that it's now broken down into these different subsections that I discussed. So if, for example, we want to talk about, let's talk about Kubernetes being a cloud native podcast. So we always start off with the big picture. What is Kubernetes, or what we should have done was, what is container orchestration? Talk about that. Choosing your Kubernetes platform, because there are lots of different areas, and OpenShift, roll your own Kubernetes cluster, manage Kubernetes clusters, etc. Then it goes about deploying your first Kubernetes cluster. Now, every one of them, we start off with the big picture, we get into a bit of the theory, and then we want to get hands-on. Now, throughout all of this, there's hands-on lab type scenarios, and the important part there is that as long as you've got a laptop or some sort of compute device, you have the ability to run through these as well. So things like Minikube is a great example of how we can get hands-on with Kubernetes without having to go and put a credit card into AWS or having to have a home lab, for example, because not everyone's got it. Also, from a virtualization point of view, one of the things that I did with Linux was, let's build a virtual machine and we can get hands-on with it there. But instead of, again, having to have VMware licenses or going to spin up a virtual machine in the public cloud, let's use VirtualBox, which is free, that we can use on our laptop to run that machine. And all the way through that, you've got a little bit of theory, because I don't like to sit through a lot of theory either. The big picture, mentioning like maybe not just if I was doing the infrastructure as code, maybe not just talking about Terraform, maybe we're talking about Pulumi, maybe we're talking about Crossplane, for example, as well, and other areas. But then maybe we get hands-on, or we get some theory done around Terraform, and then we get hands-on with Terraform pretty much straight away. So as you can see here, like if you dive into one, infrastructure as code. So here we talk about humans make mistakes, automation is the way to go, kind of what I was discussing earlier. And then it talks about pet versus cattle. And you can see here, and then a load of resources. And these resources are generally going to be much smarter people than me that are on YouTube, and they're delivering some of these sessions. If I just then dive into like HashiCorp configuration language, so this is the language that it's built upon. You can go through and you can copy this data, and you can start to follow along with that hands-on scenario to start building out virtual machines, or create a VM with Terraform using these variables, using VirtualBox. Like, it gives you hands-on experience without having to spend the money on there. Just to also, while we're on it as well, like we're very close to finishing the 2023 edition. So I never thought that this was ever going to be a thing. But off the back of 2022 and the amount of stars that, in fact, if I go backwards here, like you'll see here, this is absolute crazy. If you think about the first 3 months, we're here, if you can see my core, yeah, exactly. So, and I know a lot of people, they were like, oh, we'll bookmark it, we'll come back to you when you've finished your 90 days. So obviously March the 31st, well, in fact, the whole thing goes from January the 1st to March the 31st. That's the 90 days. It's 3 months, and it's the start of the year. So it was easy to, like, let's go. This is the challenge. But you can see how this accelerated up and kind of went crazy.
Yeah.
And it's continuing to go. I think we had like 700 stars in a week last week. So it's still going up at a good rate. But you can see how there was a lot of accountability. I thought 5,000 was a lot of people to start the repository, but to have way over 20,000 now is ridiculous. But and it was only then, it was kind of about maybe here 8 months, 9 months, maybe September last year, where I started to think, okay, what do we do for 2023? Where do we go next? And I knew already that I'd maybe on purpose left out on the security focus, because if everyone, Rohit, yourself included, like, we know how big security has been over the last 12 to 18 months. So I knew that I'd left out that security aspect of DevOps, the DevSecOps aspect. So I knew I wanted to go back and cover some of that, but I didn't know whether maybe 90 Days of DevOps was not the right place to do it. But given the rocket ship that it was on, I wanted to incorporate that into the same project. And I thought one way to have everything is a better way to do this. So, but another thing that I wanted to do was make sure that I included some SMEs, some subject matter experts when it came to some of these areas. Now, I wanted to kick things off because I wanted to talk about why I missed out DevSecOps, but also what is DevSecOps from my perspective. And then I got the likes of Pratik and Anton Sankoff and Ben Hirschberg from Armo to come in and just do 7 days on runtime defense and monitoring. Brian's at the moment, he's working on secrets management. Rishab, who you've spoken to recently, he covered Python. AWS from Chris Williams, who's now at HashiCorp as well. Dean is touching on OpenShift. Like, there's all of these different areas that just bolster what we all need to know from a DevOps perspective in our roles. So we worked through that. We reflected on 2023. We did the DevSecOps big picture. Sorry, Rohit, what was that?
Yeah, awesome. Like, also, a fun fact is, like, in the last talk, I had the chat with Kubernetes podcast host, if you know Abdel. So he was also talking like security is something which will be the big thing of this upcoming years. And as we all know, like because security is something most important part now, because everyone is growing their tech, growing their systems, and they're using the AI, they are using the DevOps and various things. But if they don't focus on the security, then it will be really a big thing.
And I think and absolutely to that point is everyone can go and create applications now. Everyone can go and create a Docker container or a container and store it in a public repository or public registry. And that, in a way, is one, it's amazing that you don't need to necessarily be a developer to develop a CLI or a program or an application. But two, that is really worrying, because that if you don't know what you don't know, you could let a lot of vulnerabilities into the world by doing that, or not having a proper pipeline to be able to look after that. So that was kind of another area, like going into databases, serverless, service mesh, etc. Going into those areas with people that know what they're doing. They're providing more insight into the world of DevOps. But yeah, so we're not far off. I think by the end of this week we should be good. You see, like Brian's been busy with a new Nomad course, so he's not been able to commit too much time. Dean moved house, so he's now clambering back his OpenShift stuff. This is actually all done. I need to do a PR and fix this, but Marino did an awesome job on Service Mesh. He actually started off the back of this, which I think is amazing. He started a 70 days of Service Mesh that he linked actually in here. If I go and look at day 77, I think he talks about it. Yeah, 70 days of Service Mesh. So, which is over on his thing, and you see he's already growing 216 stars. And yeah, he's going to go into all the details around it, but also giving me shout out, which is like amazing to think, right? It's a massive community, and we just want to help each other, like learn and grow around these different areas.
Awesome.
And then Alistair's bringing us home with the last few, which so. Not that we'd run out of things to talk about, but we obviously talk about a lot of tooling, a lot of platforms that we have available to us, but we don't really talk about the day two operations. Like what do we have to do on a daily basis if you're in a DevOps focused role? So me and Alistair discussed it, and like things like writing an API. An API to some people sounds very daunting. A lot of pushes and gets, and so Alistair breaks it down really nicely actually in what is an API, and then about how we build it and what we do with it, and he's carrying that on around the architecture and stuff. So,
and after that API gateways, and then also about multi-tenancy, there are various people they do operations.
Which then you can see where I go. Like we'll get halfway through 2023 and I'll go, well, what do we do for 2024? What are we missing from this year? And where should we go? Like now you hear about platform engineering, Rohit, and so should we do 90 days of platform engineering? I know the answer is very much the same, technologies, platforms, etc. But yeah, it's
I think it is like just kind of one kind of evolution little to the new thing, but I think most of the terminologies inside the platform engineering is similar, like kind of similar, not everything is similar, most of the things. So if you want to get into platform engineering, if anyone, then 90 days of DevOps will surely help you. So don't think about any like what should we learn now? Should we look for any new course entirely for learning the platform engineering? It is nothing like that. You can go with the 90 days of DevOps, and it will surely help you. As you can from our audience, as you have seen in the previous talks and previous my what we say reels or your talks and my GitHub repositories, everywhere I have mentioned that 5 or 6 repositories and something, you will say at the top 90 days of DevOps, because I know it is really worthy to learn from that. And I have really nice friends who are teaching this thing. So as you talked about Marino, Rishabh, Michael, Chris is something exceptional in the AWS. He has his own things, and if so, there are other people also who are teaching these things. AWS, like Andrew is there for AWS. But when you kind of look for the entire path freely available, then I would recommend really, if you want to go for the structured path, then 90 days of DevOps is really nice. So going forward, Michael, I would like to ask you some tricky questions now. So now, as the our industry is evolving and something, most of the people are facing the doubts like platform engineering is there, ChatGPT is there, AI is there. So is there like no need of DevOps, or it is taking the job of DevOps? What
Well,
is your take on this?
yeah, so my opinion on this is actually when we started to see DevOps engineers as a title for a job come out, it wasn't, in my opinion, the right title to give to people. In my opinion, and I get it. It was a cool new title, and loads of people made loads more money basically by just calling themselves DevOps engineers, and I'm all for that. Right, us individuals are important. However, I think actually when you look at the evolution of the sysadmin, that title should have always been a bit more focused around platform engineering as a team. What are you? I'm a platform engineer. What does that mean? Oh, I look after all the platforms that we use internally. But now if you go back 5-10 years and you speak to DevOps engineer at company A and DevOps engineer at company B, they probably have completely different like days, responsibilities. Whereas a platform engineer with that high level, I look after all the platforms. I look after the virtualization. I look after the Kubernetes. I look after the cloud. Okay, that platform engineering team, they look after 3 things, but maybe over here they just look after cloud-native and cloud-based platforms. That's fine. They're just looking after platforms and supplying platforms to developers, to operations, to customers, to end users. Doesn't really matter. A platform is a more heterogeneous term that we can use that's just a little bit better than DevOps. Oh, I do DevOps. Well, what does that mean? Like, if you just use Terraform, do you just use DevOps? If you just use Linux, do you use DevOps? Like, I want DevOps is the process and the principle, and I've said it. My unpopular opinion is that for those old enough, you may have heard of ITIL, ITIL. ITIL, it's a change management process, but it's very process driven. And I've said that DevOps is the new cooler ITIL, but platform engineering is the role, or platform engineering is the team that adopts that change or adopts that process and principles. So unpopular, popular, but I don't think DevOps is not dead by any stretch. Platform engineering, in my opinion, is a word for the roles and the actual position, but DevOps is the process and principle behind why and what we do, the culture around it.
Yeah, I agree. And what is your take on the AI, ChatGPT?
Yeah. So I've got a lot of young friends as well that are training to be developers, programmers, working with code, and they're like, ChatGPT I'm not gonna be needed, and to a degree, like, is they're gonna a junior developer will have to be more than a junior developer than they are today. Yeah. But what I would say is that we've had developers for the last 50 years. I don't know when Google, as in the search engine, came around, but we all know, and it's not, you should never be afraid of Googling something and looking for something, is that Google search was our first experience of getting information to be able to do our job. everyone lives on Stack Overflow. The amount of times I've copied and pasted from Stack Overflow or some sort of Google search into my code and made something happen. Like, but I'm not redundant, and I don't think you will be. I think what this does is this accelerates what we are able to achieve. We'll still have junior developers, but their roles and responsibilities will be more uplifted. You will have to do more. And I'm excited. I think it'll be an awesome thing. Like, I think a lot of people, but it's weird because everyone in IT, or some people in IT, they get worried and not almost scared about change. It's like, this is why we're here. We want that, right? We want that diversity, and we want that acceleration of change. Like, I always, if I sit out with my friends who are not in IT, and I'm talking about, so I've got a carpenter telling me about blockchain and cryptocurrency, and I'm like, yeah, blockchain's the technology behind it. That's what we're testing here. We're not necessarily getting into the crypto world, and it's nice to be on the cutting edge of technology. And yeah, things won't work out. I was doing stuff around OpenStack a few years, like 10 years back. That obviously didn't work out, but a lot of that premise has been brought into the Kubernetes and cloud-native world as well. So it has a habit of finding its way out, but I think in IT, we have to embrace that change. We have to embrace imposter syndrome. ChatGPT, see it as it's just another tool. GitHub Copilot, to speak of AI in our world, is only like a tool. Leverage it. Like, don't be scared of it. Leverage it.
Yeah, I get it. And as we all know, and we are talking about the same thing, like, use these technologies as a work assistant for you. You don't have to be like completely dependent on them. You just using it as a work assistant, and it will make your work smoother. I have used it, and I found it really nice. Like, whatever thing I was wasting my time on Googling and Stack Overflow and stuff, I can just ask ChatGPT or any I can use the open API their key and API directly and do the stuff. So it is nice. And as Michael said, like, you have to go with the flow of evolution. If tech evolution doesn't excite you, then my friend, you are at the wrong place. So yeah, it was really exciting talk, and we talked about various things. We talked about platform engineering, we talked about DevOps, 90 days of DevOps, and thanks, Michael, for showing that entire repository and how they can start as from the basics to the advanced from. And your 2023, that entire repository looks awesome. So if you want to start DevOps, then I would surely recommend go with the Michael's repository, and it will help you. And thanks for joining, Michael. So I'm really excited about future and cloud-native future and DevOps future. As we are together in this, we will look and keep the eye on the both of the things. And as we see, you are talking at various conferences, and you are active on the Twitter and stuff. And managing the time in the 90 days of DevOps with all of the things is really big thing. So thank you for that. We really appreciate that work. So I guess that's all for today's talk, and I will get back Michael sometime in the future when the newest 90 days of DevOps is ready, and we will have the more of the things to talk on. So yeah, thank you for joining, and audience, if you enjoyed this talk till now, I would highly recommend, like, you can go and subscribe our channel. It will really help the folks, and I would like to bring more of the folks like Michael. So thank you.